Welcome to Lynx Academy 2017 and a special session on the healthcare heroes and the amazing impact that guys like these have on the industry and the patients in which we work. So Matt, I'm going to start with you.
Well, I'm actually had Parkinson's disease now for 41 years. And really, I want to prove that having a chronic illness, you can be positive and you can live a full life as well.
Tal.
My name is Tal Goldsworthy. I'm a chartered engineer from the process industries, but I also have Marfan syndrome, which, apart from meaning long, thin bones and dodgy visual acuity, also means cardiovascular implications. I went along to a genetic study in 1992 and was talked through the total root replacement operation to replace my ascending aorta, and I was not impressed. So I built a technical team of medics and engineers. I started a company, raised the money, ran the project, and I had the first personalised external aortic root support put around my Marfanoid aorta in May 2004. Thank you very much.
And Naomi.
I'm the first nurse in the UK to specialise in basic hydration care, fundamentally. Looking after my mum through a long terminal illness, it was a real reminder to me just how hard it is to help people to drink. Then I had an idea for a drinking aid, watching one of my children use a toy to drink from. I just kind of like kept going then, because I realised that once I started looking at hydration, it was like prizing a lid off a can of worms, really, because what it did was demonstrate there are so many issues around such fundamental care. So.
And then John.
Hello, my name's John Jackson. I work for the Royal Blackburn Teaching Hospital. I'm the bereavement care champion, and I move people down to the mortuary. How can I put it? It's like when you go in and you talk to the families, because when they've lost someone, everybody's so vulnerable. They're vulnerable when they're in hospital anyway, but when you lose someone or something like that, then you explain to family how we do it, how we take the patient down. I always speak to the patient as I'm going down as well. And it's them last few seconds is the thing, it's what they always remember when someone passes away. Because I've had experience myself. Everybody has, everybody in the room has. But it's them last few seconds that they remember.
And Michael.
Follow him.
I know.
That's the one. Follow you.
You don't want to sit next to John.
I've been a patient for 30 plus years. I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease, which probably many of you are familiar with, an incurable bowel condition at 12. Spent 25, 30 operations, intestinal failure, and became the 11th patient in the UK to have an intestinal transplant. I had 9 months in hospital, so I bought some kit off eBay, YouTube videos, and hacked together a sensor. That sensor became 11 Health, the company. I'm just a great believer that healthcare's had an awful long time to try and fix itself, and it's people with other perspectives that are going to find the solutions in healthcare now.
Steve?
Well, at 17, I joined the Grenadier Guards, came out of the Guards, joined the power industry, and while I was reading an article about a certain guy who lives in the Lake District called Joss Naylor, he inspired me to go and meet him up in the lakes. He's a Lakeland farmer and he's a legend when it comes down to fowl running. He told me to stop smoking, lose some weight, and, well, start running. So I did. After a few years, did quite a few unique events. More importantly was one running from here to Blackpool non-stop with my dog. And that dog raised £3,000. From then on, it inspired us to raise more money. Been given a second chance with a pacemaker, which I never ever had thought I would need. And with that, set a world record in that I'm the first person to run the Everest Marathon with a pacemaker, and raised a lot of money for some Sherpa children whose fathers I witnessed got killed the previous time it was there.
Now we're going to move to some questions. So we're going to start with Lindsay.
How did you feel when you were first approached and found out that we wanted you to be one of our healthcare heroes?
Well, I just couldn't believe it. I was absolutely gobsmacked at first, and then you don't really realise what you've achieved or how many people it is going to affect until it's brought really to your attention from somebody outside of the circle of friends that know what you're doing it for.
John, when we met in London, you were talking about what it meant to you.
I couldn't believe that somebody wanted to come and see me. But they said the book will launch in January. Well, I just thought it was going to be like a little pamphlet, little thing. When I come in and I saw the book, I was absolutely amazed and thrilled that they did ask me to be an healthcare hero. I am so proud to be an healthcare hero. It's unbelievable.
Amazing. And Tal, in the book, one of the things that you're quoted as saying is you didn't set out to fix the world, you just set out to fix yourself.
Well, there has to be one gatecrasher and one fraud, and I'm the man. There's no way I was a hero. The reason I did what I did was because I was a coward and I was terrified at the thought of total root replacement. Once I'd fixed myself, it wasn't until then that I thought, okay, right, we can do other people. So now I suppose I might lay some sort of claim in part to being a healthcare hero. I was surprised to be approached by the healthcare heroes.
Lindsay, you've got a second question as well, haven't you? Which I think Michael will probably want to answer.
Who is your hero and why?
My transplant surgeon. I rocked up to Oxford 6.5 years ago with knowing that they'd done 10 transplants and 5 hadn't survived. 5 hadn't even got off the operating table, and I was going to be number 1 of the restarted programme. He took a notepad and he drew what my bowel looked like now, what it would look like after surgery, and in those literally 2 or 3 minutes, we built that trust, respect, that empathy, and I wouldn't be here today without him.
My hero now is Steve Watts, who sat at the other end of the table. sorry, Steve.
Don't start me off.
Steve took myself and Joe up Lafrig, and I hadn't been able to walk that far for a long time. And I didn't think I'd ever be able to do it. And Steve helped me to get up there, and I was so grateful to him. But not only that, he raised £1 million for Booth Hall Children's Hospital. And I spent all my formative years in that hospital. He's like a dad to me, even though he's not old enough to be my dad, I must say. I'll say that now, but he really is. So Steve Watts is my hero.
This is the strength of what you have created, and you should be, as already has been said, you should be very, very proud indeed. Friendships in this modern society are very, very hard to come by, but when you get one as unique as what has been formed here, wow, is special.
Give Stephen Matt a big round of applause for that. It was amazing. Ben, have you got your question?
This question is specifically for Naomi. And speaking of innovation in a world dominated by technology, I think your simple solutions are actually very refreshing. So is that a model that you're aiming to stick to?
It's simple because it needs to be simple as a starter, and because I have a lot of simple ideas. And I'm very, very bad at maths. So when I used to look at people having to calculate how much somebody had had to drink, something as simple as just, how much tea somebody had. And I was thinking, why are we still having to work out or guess, how much is in a cup? And then when I looked at some of the jugs and the beakers that were available, it was just a traditional, like a kitchen scale. And I thought, we don't need to know how much is in the cup. We need to know how much somebody's had to drink. That's the important thing. So I just thought, well, we'll just turn the scale upside down, and then it's just like a plumb line going down. And that's really it. It's simple things which can make a big difference.
Hannah Mackenzie, we have a question. This is for Michael.
What sort of treatments did you have prior to having the transplant?
I was diagnosed over 30 years ago, so there weren't the biologics around then. It was steroids and heavy immunosuppressed drugs like azathioprine and Imuran. They were the sort of frontline treatments. So there wasn't the range of options in my formative years that there is now.
And Michael, how did you find the emotions that you were going through pre-surgery?
Yeah, when you're told you're effectively 50-50 chance of survival, it's quite scary. I remember really clearly, I got called just after midnight. You rush in. It was my surgeon again. I described as the hero, as the last few words that was, don't worry, I've got you. I've got you. You're coming out of this. And so that, in a way, you talk about the last words and you talked about the things that those last few things. That's when I had that as my last few words, because my family weren't allowed in at that moment. That was it.
The thing is, it does help if somebody's been through what you've been through. And like you just said, if somebody's been through something, it's always nice that somebody goes to talk to them about it, because it does help. It makes a difference.
Tal, when we first got involved with this book, I think there were 70 patients that had been treated with your invention, and now you say I think there's 104. John alluded then to the relationship between people who've been through the process before and how it can benefit and support. So could you tell us a little bit more about that?
When I was first taught through the total root replacement in 1993 in incredibly cold clinical terms, there is no humanity, there is just a stark mechanical, technical, clinical description of what they're going to do to you, which is pretty terrifying. And through the whole process, I felt unbelievably alone. And I can remember by the time I came out of surgery thinking, I'm going to change this. So I wrote a personal experience of my trip through surgery. We now have a section on the Extent website with real patient stories on. I invite every patient to write their story. Dozens of people have contacted me and said, I was told I had a dilating aorta. They taught me through root replacement. I was terrified. I found your website. I read the patient experiences and I instantly felt comforted because I know there's a whole community out there. Anything that any of us can do that will make people feel less uncomfortable has got to be good for them, and probably has got to have a beneficial outcome in terms of their clinical outcome.
We're running out of time, but I was going to go to Alice. You've got a question for John.
My dad's chronically ill. He's in and out of hospital quite a bit. And one of the things that I've observed is the staff are all great, but outside of the ICU, you can tell that a lot of them would really value that time to be able to spend with patients. You could tell that they would like to interact with him a bit more, reassure him, make him feel more comfortable, but they simply don't have the time because they've got a ward full of other patients who are waiting for their care. Do you find that is a problem, and how do you deal with that in your kind of day-to-day?
Myself personally, it's not a problem for me, because any time I go onto any ward, I always interact with every patient I go onto the ward. And like you just said, people are busy doing, like say, on the IC unit. But the thing is, it doesn't take a thing if somebody's walking past us to say hello to people. You need to interact with people, and you need to keep to interact with people.
Lindsay, you've got a final question.
So my question was, we do all have bad days. When you have a bad day, what do you do? Do you have any specific techniques that you use to make yourself feel more positive?
The very nature of my condition is so I don't know what's going on from one minute to the next. So all I can look at it as if, well, I'm not feeling so good at the moment, but at least I'll feel better later. That's the way I get past it.
And Tal?
I read the patient experiences on the website because they are unbelievably uplifting. If any of you have a crappy day, just go on to Extent, patient experiences, and read some, and you will be lifted.
Naomi?
It sounds cheesy, but deep down in here, I have known from the day that I saw that toy for the children that I knew that I had something there. But I knew that actually to focus on a product would be looking at the tip of the iceberg. And I have just taken a can off. And then I had a glass of wine in the evening.
That works. John?
I walk into work and I see people that's so ill. I think, it's not a bad day for me. Not a bad day at all. Because at the end of the day, it's a bad day because they're not so well. And when you go into work, I leave it at the door and I be so professional. But to me, I don't have a bad day in that respect, because at the end of the day, I'm so fortunate. My dad always used to say, if you open your eyes at morning, it's a good day. And that's what's right.
I always have to follow you.
And then we have Steve.
Whatever.
It's been a pleasure, Michael.
No, listen, I think when I'm down, and yeah, listen, there are plenty of down times. I think for me, I just have the greatest privilege that I've been able to produce a product that's going to help someone else. And that is just the best thing you can possibly feel, that feeling of being able to help someone else.
And Steve, when you have a bad day?
When you are given a second lease of life on a table, and the clinician says to you, I want you to do everything what you've done, Steve, before, and I want you to do everything the same after. Run as often as you want, climb whatever you want to climb, just live your life normal. I don't have any more bad days. Not after being on that table, I don't. I just get up and do what I love doing and share it with as many people and inspire the next generation. I hope.
With that we're now out of time, unfortunately. So that's the end of this Lynx Academy special on the healthcare. So a huge round of applause to all of our heroes.